see my recording button in front of my name. Okay, you guys are equally sleepy. Don't realize. And anyway, so fine. So you guys are probably not sure about the answer. So the answer is that the tail rotors for both these helicopters, okay, would be generating thrust in different directions. So the vortex ring state is not just a concern for main rotor; it is also a concern for tail rotor of helicopters. Because imagine a helicopter is hovering and suddenly there is a gust of wind coming on one of the tail rotors, right? So depending on the direction in which it is thrusting, the tail rotor may enter climb or it may enter descent. And that is why they are saying you move in this particular direction, because if you do the opposite of that, then you will create trouble for your tail rotor, because that tail rotor will start into descent. That's why for counterclockwise, you go to the right. Other option is I simply go straight. If I have room to go straight, I can go straight also. So I apply a longitudinal cyclic and I go straight. That can also help you come out of vortex ring state, because I have done it myself. So I had a $100 quad rotor long back, which did not have any sophisticated autopilot. It simply had a basic attitude controller. So you are practically flying it manually. So in that case, when you are and its RPM controller was not very good. So you would give a small throttle deduction to bring it down. It will start to come down very fast. So a few times I would find it to enter vortex ring state. And so what happens? When you enter vortex ring state, your vehicle will start descending very fast. If you start descending too fast, what is going to be the panic action on your part? What will you try to do?
Thrust up.
Right. So you'll try to increase the thrust, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you'll try to put more power into it. So more power actually makes situation worse. Because what happens, more power means it will spin at higher RPM. If it's spinning at higher RPM, its downforce is increasing, so your vortex ring state will become more worse. Okay. And it will not help you much. So what is recommended is that you, instead of trying to give more power, you try to go forward or backward or sideways. So I'll try to give some forward pitch angle, so that you start moving forward, and you will see that you will recover the control immediately. It will come out of vortex ring state very quickly. So now, because of this whole business that you are trying to come out of this condition by applying more power, helicopter pilots used to refer this particular condition as settling with power. Okay, so that's a very common name. So I'll play another video where they mention exactly the same thing. I don't think it's a really very useful, but here they use the term settling with power in helicopters. Yes. So this guy tries to explain something, so it's not very relevant. Okay, so let's go back to my lectures. Slides. Let me share it again. So that's why they used to call it settling with power. And the way to come out of this vortex ring state is by maneuvering the helicopter in any other direction, either forward, backward, sideward, something, which will help you come out of vortex ring state. So now let us look at this more formally. Okay. Like, what are the different working states of a helicopter rotor? So various flow states with axial flow. One is, of course, the normal working state, which is hover. Flow is downward everywhere. The second situation is vortex ring state. It just occurs as the rotor starts to descend at low rates of descent. So the typical order where you start experiencing vortex ring state is when you are at around quarter of hover induced velocity. In this case, the flow becomes such that the wake will actually go beyond the rotor disc. Okay, so you have this kind of bulge because there is a ring of vortex sitting here. So the flow may be somewhere upwards, somewhere downwards, and so on. Okay, but before we go with details of this, sorry, I forgot to cover one more part. That is, after we get this relationship, we also write the expression for power, which I have not done earlier here. So that actually is to be done. So let us first quickly discuss this part. So this is the same graph which we saw earlier, that is induced velocity for normal working state, where you are climbing and hovering. Other is for the windmill brake state, when you are descending very, very fast and the flow is completely upwards. And in between other things like vortex ring state, turbulent wake state, and so on, where momentum theory is not valid from 0 to -2. So same way, I can draw another graph, which is the power graph. Okay. So power we saw on the one side, it was going asymptotically towards this line. Other side also similarly, it will come down asymptotically towards the same line. Okay. Here is the windmill brake state. Only difference is that here the power was positive, here the power is negative. So the power actually is in the third quadrant. Okay. This is first quadrant, everything is positive, my climb is positive, power is positive. Other side, when I go to very high descent rates, my descent is very fast and I end up generating power, calling it the windmill brake state. And in between there is power, but then we don't know, how to calculate that using momentum theory. It has been connected by using some empirical observations. And also in between, there is a point where there is a crossover which happens. So this graph you already have seen. All these graphs are also there in Leishman's book, but nevertheless you take it down. Okay, so I will stay here for a moment. Okay, you have two lines like this. X-axis is VC by VH, Y-axis is VI by VH, and normal working state here is climb side. Between this, there is no momentum theory, so you can have some approximate band covering here, connecting these 2 points. And on the other side, from -2 onwards, you again have this inflow coming down, the way it is coming down on the positive side. So this up to point -2 to 0, there is no physical solution. From 0 to -1, somewhere in between, there will be vortex ring state. And later on, there will be other states also, where there is one point called point of ideal auto rotation, where VC plus VI is equal to 0. That is, VC is exactly equal to induced velocity. This is a very interesting point, called the auto rotation point. So moving on to the power graph, here this becomes more obvious. So you can draw these two lines, or power by hover power on the y-axis, climb by induced velocity for hover on the x-axis. Draw this 45 degrees line, this 45 degrees line, and then from 1 it goes asymptotic towards that, and here also from -1 it will go asymptotically towards this dashed line. So that's this becomes, let's connect my writing pad so that I can start annotating whenever needed. All right. So, right. So this part, what we see here, this is not defined. This is not connected. I mean, you can max, you can actually form some kind of a band here and say that, okay, there is some behavior here. Actually, not here, up to here. Actually, sorry. So this whole thing is actually like a band. And this entire thing, there is no momentum theory definition. So this part, normal climb. This part, normal descent. And so this region is called windmill brake state. Somewhere up here in this zone, there will be turbulent wake state. This is also here in the sense that it will be somewhere between -2 to -1. Okay. So this is the state after vortex ring state. So you have VRS here, vortex ring state, turbulent wake state, and then windmill brake state. Now in this whole process, we get a point where my power goes to zero. It comes to this line. Okay. And this particular point where it actually happens, we call this point of ideal autorotation. Why ideal? Why ideal autorotation?
Because if we are getting some power by windmill break state, even then that power will be.
Your audio is too low. I mean, can you speak louder or come closer to your mic?
Okay, sorry. Is it clear now?
Better.
So I was saying in the windmill break state, we are getting some power, but we are not storing it anywhere. So in a way, it is going to heat or some other form.
No. Don't get into those thermodynamics. There is no thermodynamics.
Sir,
Huh?
sir, there is no any condition where we don't use we don't use any power. So, but here from the graph we see that there is no requirement of power. So that's why we are calling it as ideal autorotation.
Ideal autorotation. Why ideal? First of all, I'm asking what ideal autorotation. I'll explain what is autorotation.
That is the reason. I mean, that's why we are actually we are using power, but from the graph,
it's very simple. Okay. Right now, this graph that you are seeing is from what theory?
So it's from momentum theory, which is ideal.
Theory. Exactly. Right. So this is ideal power, right? Okay. And that's why this point we call ideal autorotation, because here we are putting the condition that my induced power is going to zero. But in reality, there is always profile power also. So it cannot go to zero, right? I mean, only induced power going to zero is not enough. The induced plus profile power combined has to go to zero. Or in other sense, there is a equilibrium where the rotor can spin without requirement of any power. That is why it is called auto rotation. That is, the rotor is spinning on its own. Okay, we do not require engine power anymore to continue it. So I can switch off my engine and allow the rotor to spin on its own. But where is the energy coming, right? How can rotor continue to spin on its own? Is there some magic? Perpetual motion machine? How can rotor continue to spin on its own? So who wants to work on wind turbines?
Sir, I.
Right, okay, yes.
Yes.
So you have any idea?
No, sir, I'm thinking, sir.
It's actually similar to windmill, right? I mean, after this
Yes,
point, there is windmill break state, right?
Yes, sir.
Where your your rotor is generating energy. So this is a point where actually rotor is spinning. How is spinning? Because air is flowing through it.
Yes.
Right. But question is, for a helicopter, how would you ensure that rotor is spinning because air can go through it? How can I ensure that? For a wind turbine is stationary and air comes and flows through it.
Yes, sir.
Here, my helicopter is flying in still air. So what do I do to make sure that my rotor can spin because of air flow through it?
So we will design the blades in such.
No. Design. You
Sir,
simply drag the helicopter through air.
We start descending, sir.
Exactly. So we are talking about descent, right? So this point is a point of descent. So we choose a point of descent where this equilibrium happens. That the rotor power requirement, the rotor torque requirement goes to zero. So what is happening? This energy, I mean, somebody is supplying this energy. It's not coming for free. To ensure this descent, I am actually I am allowing gravity to do work on me. Right? So you are continuously losing potential energy. My helicopter, all of you remember the auto rotation video I showed? for small helicopters?
Yes, sir.
You remember, right? Or anybody who did not see that video? Everybody remembers, fine. Okay. So the helicopter starts to descend, right? I mean, it's descending, and when it's descending, it's basically losing potential energy. And if I don't do anything, it will gain kinetic energy, right? I mean, you drop a stone, its speed increases, right? So like that, I mean, helicopter is dropping, its velocity is going to increase, and as a result, the airflow through the rotor will also increase. So that's how this whole auto rotation business works. I will explain it in more detail, but I think that is fine for now. Okay. All right. So we are done with this graph. So this is there is a point where there is a auto rotation where the power required by the rotor is 0.
Sir, what is turbulent wake state in this?
Turbulent wake state is similar to vortex ring state. I'm coming to that in a moment. Here. All right. So now let us look at these things one by one. There. Okay. So I'll come to this auto rotation business and the formula for that later. Okay, first, let us look at this here. All right. So sorry, 1 minute. I will call. All right. So first was what we are talking about. I mean, normal working state. Yeah. So flow is nice downwards everywhere. Your boundary is well defined. Next state is this vortex ring state. Where? So normal working state, you can draw this diagram. So write down normal working state in your notes. Okay. I mean, I forget that you have to take notes also. So draw this diagram. Okay, so write down these 4 working states of rotor in axial flight. Remember, this is for axial flight only. What is axial flight?
Up
Who
and
will
down
answer?
only. Ascend and descend only.
Yeah, so your rotor, the flow through the rotor is only in one axis. It's parallel to the axis of the rotor, center of the rotor. Yeah, it's always parallel to that. Okay, so diagram done. Normal working state over. I should also take a screenshot for attendance for today. So diagram is done, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So right, so that is normal working state. Today is 19th. Right? Now question is, what is vortex ring state? So write down vortex ring state. So for low rate of descent, when descent velocity is of the order of 0.25 of VH, quarter of VH. So if my VH is say 10 meters per second and my helicopter is descending at 2.5 meters per second. In such scenarios, tip vortex filaments are convected close to the plane of the rotor. So you saw, right, that huge vortex ring created behind the helicopter in that visualization thing. So that kind of ring will get created because what is happening, see the air coming from down because of my descent is pushing the wake up. Okay, it's pushing it up and all the vortices which are being set, the helix, right? The helix, I mean, if I squeeze the helix and bring it into one point, right? Just imagine, I mean, like a spring, I press it, yeah, it becomes a coil, right? So that ring forms around the rotor disc. So it's convected close. So it's pushed by the air close to the plane of the rotor and also moves radially outwards away from the rotor. Because I am pushing it, so now, I mean, it needs some space where it can park itself. Because rotor, close to the rotor, there is a lot of spinning air. So it will form an equilibrium point where if this is my rotor, my ring will be somewhere outside that rotor area. Okay. So this ring will form and the flow field around that will bulge up like this, which we saw in the CFD simulation I showed you, computational fluid dynamics simulation. Somebody had done, I got it from YouTube. So in this area now flow recirculates violently. Okay. This is very, very violent, aperiodic, unsteady. So all those things are happening here. So you can see in the flow also, somewhere I have marked flow going downwards. Other places I have marked flow going upwards. So there is recirculation happening. There is my pen here, right? So here you see this kind of thing is happening. Okay, but somewhere in between there is also nice flow which is going downwards. So part of the rotor actually has okay kind of flow, other part has this violent flow. And this bulging thing happens, flow recirculates, it is quite violent, this whole state. So this accumulation of tip vortex in the rotor plane begins to resemble like concentric set of vortex rings. So from piloting point of view, this is very dangerous. And the rotor can lose lift as we saw. And that's why that case of Ospreys, right? V22 Ospreys crashing. This guy starts descending too fast and somehow first rotor ends up losing your thrust faster. Okay. And because it loses thrust so fast, now other rotor actually is generating thrust. What will happen? No thrust here, lot of thrust here.
Couple rotate.
So you have
Yes.
a moment, it will just whole thing is going to flip over. And that's what you saw in that animation, that the whole helicopter, or other Osprey, V22 Osprey, it flipped over, and after it has flipped over by 180 degrees, you cannot do anything, right? Crash in a matter of time. So it's very dangerous. But all helicopter pilots are aware of this, so they normally never descend vertically. They would, if they have to descend vertically, they will do it very, very slowly. At order of, I would say, here it is safe. Okay. I would not want to go, don't want to go over 0.1 VH. Okay. Because if I go to 0.25 VH, for sure I'll have vortex in state. That is one part of the challenge. So the accumulation of tip vortex happens and resemble. So I hope you are noting down all these things.
Yes, sir.
So from pilot's point of view, it is very dangerous, and also same thing can happen to my tail rotor also. So tail rotor vortex ring state can cause loss of tail rotor effectiveness due to loss of thrust of the tail rotor. Because suddenly, you have to tell me, explain to me, how can, I gave you already one example that there is one scenario where tail rotor can enter vortex ring state. What was that? Let me ask someone. Okay, I'll call out names. I don't want every same people to answer all the time. Who are participants, right? Yeah. Okay, so Aman, are you there? Aman?
Yes, sir.
Unmute. Yeah. All right. So I talked about one scenario where helicopter rotor can enter vortex ring state. Can
Yes,
you tell me about that? What was the scenario?
sir, when they were descending very fastly,
Tail rotor. When is tail rotor descending? What is tail rotor?
which is behind the main rotor.
Yeah. So
At
how
the-
is it descending? How will it enter descending condition? I agree. Rotor has to sort of experience descending kind of condition. So the question is, how would tail rotor experience descending condition? What can happen? Tail rotor is here, right? Do I have a helicopter here? Yeah. Okay, yeah, I have this helicopter point. Right. So this actually has a make-believe tail rotor also. Although it's a coaxial, it doesn't require tail rotor. It's unpowered tail rotor here. Okay. So now,
Yes.
what can be done to make this tail rotor enter descending condition or experience descending flight condition? I mentioned one example a while back. What was it?
I didn't attended the class before this, previous to this.
I'm not talking about previous class. I just talked about this in this very class 10 minutes back or 5 minutes
Yes.
back when I was discussing vortex ring state.
Yes, yes.
Just अभी 5 मिनट पहले मैंने बोला ये. Pay attention in class.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to check everyone. I mean, if you are listening clearly, carefully or not. Okay, so Aman cannot answer. Who is next in line? Akhil. Are you there?
Sir, yes,
Ah,
sir.
yes. So, did you hear what I told earlier?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what is the answer?
So when this main rotor, like when it descends, the tail rotor will also go into the descent state.
No, why would it go in descent state? If I am coming like this, right? If I move
Yes.
like this, my main rotor can experience descent, yes. But why will my tail rotor experience descent? This is not actual flight for tail rotor, right? I am dragging tail rotor in edgewise direction. That is not descent for tail rotor.
Maybe a rolling moment or something will happen.
Yeah, you are getting warmer. Think a little bit more. I gave this answer a while back already. There are two scenarios in which this can enter. Tail rotor can enter vortex ring state. So imagine helicopter is hovering condition.
Yes.
What would have to be done to make the tail rotor go in vortex ring state? Okay, so looks like you are also not listening carefully. Okay, so let's go to next guy. Sai Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Helicopter moving in a way such that the ring vortex.
Keep your mic slightly away. Your voice is getting sort of clipped.
Yes, sir. Now, sir.
Yeah, better.
A helicopter moving in such a way that the main rotor drives the ring vortex towards tail rotor. In that case, tail rotor descends.
I could not make a clear sense of what you said. Are you saying when the main rotor gets into vortex ring state?
Yeah, to recover from.
Forget about. I mean, my main rotor has not gone into vortex ring state. Why do I send it to vortex ring state? Question is how my helicopter is hovering. What would you do to the helicopter, or what can happen around helicopter that can cause the tail rotor to go into descent or eventually in vortex ring state?
Ring vortex, if main rotor drives the ring vortex towards tail rotor, then
Main rotor has nothing to do here. Okay. Main rotor is out of picture.
like, when helicopter moving in such a way,
Yeah, which way? Which way helicopter has to move?
in left or right direction,
Yes, good,
based on.
good. Yes. So if I make the helicopter go like this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You are able to see my video?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if let's say my tail rotor is generating thrust in this opposite direction, okay, then if I make it go like this rotor is actually going into descent. So actually there are three scenarios. This is scenario number one. All right, fine. So you have figured it out. The next person, let's see. Prabhakaran. Can you unmute?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So one scenario is this, right? Okay. In which my helicopter can enter vortex ring state, tail rotor can enter vortex ring state. What is
Yes,
the other
sir.
scenario? By the way, the answer he gave is not the answer I told a while back. Did you hear the answer I had told? Or you have any other idea by which I can make the helicopter tail rotor go into vortex ring state?
Sir, sorry, sir, I didn't get your point.
Didn't do what?
Sir, I didn't get you, sir.
My question, I have been asking this question to everyone. It's the same question.
Yes.
What is the question? Can you repeat the question?
Sir,
You did not hear the question also.
no, sir.
Why? You are not even listening to the lecture?
Sir, I got disconnected frequently, sir.
What?
I got disconnected frequently, sir.
Okay.
Network.
You did not inform me that you got disconnected earlier. So the question is what would have to be done to make the rotor, tail rotor of the helicopter enter vortex ring state?
Sir,
Did you hear anything about vortex ring state?
yes, sir. I hear it.
Okay. So what is vortex ring state?
Sir,
You're not sure?
Sir, let me study on this and I will tell you, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so let's move on to next person. Shiva? Shiva,
Yes, sir.
yes. So you got my question, right?
Yes, sir. You asked how vortex ring state occurs in tail rotor.
Right. So one answer we have already heard. You also heard that, I guess.
Yes, sir. Lateral movement of.
If I have moved sideways very fast,
Yes.
opposite to the direction of the thrusting rotor, I can actually make my tail rotor go into vortex ring state, right?
Yes.
Now, what other scenarios can happen? I mentioned one more scenario a while back, actually. And beyond that also, there is a third scenario which can also happen. You have any idea? What would be the thing? No?
I feel it is this wind disturbance caused by.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Yes. Right. So just like, I mean, I can make wind happen by moving my helicopter. My helicopter may be stationary and wind may come and hit, right?
Yes.
So I can have actually wind coming from one side, which actually would make the rotor, tail rotor go inclined.
Yes.
Right. So that will actually also cause this vortex ring state.
Okay.
Perfect. Great. You could think. Very nice. Okay. Next is yes, one. By the way, I mean, see, I'm not sure what your names are if I end up telling your incorrect name, because some people have their father's name also as part of their name. Do correct me, okay? Because some of you have 2-3 names, so I'm just picking one name and using it. Okay? So if I am wrong in that, please correct me, okay? All right, so yes, one.
Yes, sir. Myself,
Right.
Nikit.
Oh, your name is Nikit. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Nikit.
Yes, sir.
So we have considered 2 scenarios now. Can you think of a third scenario?
So
Yeah,
due to
mine-
continuous,
Hmm.
yes, sir. So due to continuous pedaling, we can change the yawing moment, and due to rapid
Very
change
good.
in yawing
Right.
moment, this can happen.
Right. So if you generate a fast yaw rate, if I make my helicopter yaw very, very fast, that is the third scenario. So if I spin too fast, again my tail rotor actually can enter into descent condition, and again it can enter vortex ring state. So these three things one has to be careful about. Don't fly too fast in the direction opposite to the thrust for the tail rotor. And so in the sense, I mean, if my thrust is in this direction, okay, I can climb, but I cannot descend. Okay, so I should not fly in this manner too fast. So that would be the direction opposite to which the tail rotor is thrusting. So if the tail rotor is thrusting in this direction, I should not actually go in the same. I should not go in the direction opposite to that. Okay, it should not go into descent kind of scenario. So one is sideward speed, high sideward speed. Number two is wind disturbance, and number three is very high yaw rates. So in either of these three scenarios, we can actually get into trouble, okay, of this kind, where my helicopter can enter vortex ring state. So this is actually very interesting area. Still, a lot of people do research in this domain and so on. Now, so we covered this part now really well. Okay, so let's move on further. So now, if my rotor is descending even faster than this, more than 0.25 or more than VH actually. Okay. So I descend pressure increase further, so that BC is of the order of 1.5 VH. Wake above the rotor becomes more turbulent and aperiodic and violent. So now the diagram for turbulent wake state is somewhat similar to the diagram for my friend there. Yeah. So this is somewhat similar, but you can see earlier for vortex ring state, the bulges were bigger. Okay. So this is my rotor, and the rings were big, so it was like this. But now these rings have become somewhat smaller. Okay, and above there is more turbulence. Okay, so here there is a lot of turbulence. There is still, I mean, so more or less the flow is upwards everywhere, but there is still a lot of circulation happening. Slipstream boundary is somewhat well defined, so this bulge has come down from vortex ring state compared to that. And here the flow is sort of like that with the bluff body. So instead of rotor, okay, what is a bluff body? Give me an example of bluff. Let me ask. Okay, so Sagar, give me an example of a bluff body.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Sagar. Go ahead.
Yes. The aircraft nose maybe.
Aircraft?
Yes. Nose part.
Nose is a bluff body. Well, not entirely. I mean, I can make it pointed and nice and streamlined also. Give me a more common example of a bluff body.
Okay.
Any normal shape which you see around you, which you can call a bluff body.
Yes, sir.
You are from aero background or from mechanical?
Aero, sir. Yeah.
Then, I mean, this is a cakewalk for you.
Sir, shall I answer this question?
I'll come to you. Okay, let him first try. Very common things. Many things are bluff bodies actually.
Yes. Means the aircraft nose will be means it will be so streamlined.
No. I mean, why
If we
aircraft nose? I mean, forget about aircraft nose. I mean, anything around you which is not streamlined is a bluff body.
No, sir. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you yourself are a bluff body,
Yes, sir. Yes.
right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So now, can you tell me a more common shape? What shapes do you know? Geometrical shapes.
It will be somewhat like arc. Means.
No. Arc can be airfoil actually. Okay. Guru Prabhakar.
Yes, sir. Sir, sphere cylinder.
So your name is Guru or Prabhakaran?
Sir, Guru, sir.
Guru. Okay, good. All right. So Guru, you what are you saying?
Sir, sphere cylinder.
sphere, exactly, sphere, cylinder. I was about to make a square or a cube. So in 3D it will be cube, 2D it is square. So that's a blub body. So my rotor actually acts like a blub body. So if I look at a flow past a square like this, then you will see the flow will be like this. Actually, not so much. It will probably be like this here. It will go here. Yes, sorry, the flow will come like this. Go here and then like that. I'm not drawing it very well. Let me erase some parts. Then probably I can do slightly better. Right. So the flow actually mimics that. So it can be, yeah, like that. Yeah, here there will be a lot of. So what happens? I mean, flow from here, okay, will separate. Yeah, and you will have this kind of vertical structures being set. So most blub bodies, even for a sphere, if you take care, flow will be like this. It will go here and then it will separate from here. Okay. So it will separate from here, okay, and you will have these vertical things coming up. So in this case, that's what is happening. Rotor acts like a blub body, and flow is very similar to that. Okay. So this is called turbulent wake state. So flow behind a blub body is also very turbulent, and the wake is turbulent behind that. So that's why they probably call it turbulent wake state. It's similar to vortex ring state, but less violent, I would say. Vortex ring state is more violent. So all of you have noted down this. Drawing is done.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then comes the windmill brake state, when my mod VC is greater than twice of VH, which we have already studied using momentum theory. Again, the regular shape for the slipstream has been restored. We have now nicely developed slipstream. Flow everywhere is upwards. Tip vortex is also now normally getting set up like this. So if I look at, I mean, my helical tip vortices will go like this, like this. It will go up again like this. Really bad drawing, but I hope you get the point. Okay. So that was the turbulent wake, windmill brake state. So these are the four states of the rotor. Okay. And this happens in axial flight. Now we have two things to look at. One is auto rotation, and other second is how we define the inflow in between the zone VC to 2VH. Okay. So region between hover and the windmill brake state. That is what happens to the induced velocity in between this zone. So like we discussed, there is no simple theory. So what people do is they try to find out induced velocity that is there between these two scenarios. And it is done empirically, that is by experimental means. So in this whole region, there are challenges. There is a lot of interaction of tip vortices with other blades, and flow is very unsteady and turbulent. So, I mean, it is hard to define one uniform inflow, because in momentum theory, okay, the fundamental thing is that the inflow across the rotor is constant everywhere, right? Because it's a disk, and everywhere it imparts same amount of velocity. But in vortex ring state, we see that the flow somewhere is up, somewhere is down. It is there is a lot of recirculation, so I cannot claim that same your inflow velocity is imparted everywhere. It is not possible. So what do? So we now define a average parameter. So we say that okay, what I do is I actually take a rotor. Okay. So I take a rotor. Okay. Instrument this rotor and make measurements. So what I can do, I can measure the power. And from induced velocity, I know that, sorry. from momentum theory, I know that my power actually is defined as thrust into VC plus average VI, okay, with the bars on top, which means average induced velocity. So whatever power I can measure for this rotor, which is in this descent condition. How do I make a rotor descent for my experiment? Let me ask Srikar, Sai Srikar. So I want to measure power for this rotor in descending flight. First, you tell me how can I make my rotor descend?
Sir, decrease the RPM.
No, but I mean, I give you this helicopter and I tell you I want to make measurements on this. I want to make it descend. What will you do?
Sir, in the sense, without doing the real experiment.
No, we have to do the real experiment. Yeah. So how do you set up the experiment? I'm asking that. What will you do to simulate descending flight for this helicopter? In experiment, simulate in the sense, I mean, how do I make this particular helicopter descend without helicopter moving around?
Okay. This will come down. Sir, maybe we need to start with blow air with a little velocity from upwards.
And how do you what devices you use to blow air?
Wind tunnel.
Exactly. So I'll put my helicopter like this in the tunnel.
Yes.
Right? And make sure air comes from behind. So I put it like this, and my air comes from this side. So what happens? It's spinning, and I get my rotor in descent condition, right?
Yes, sure.
So this is the simplest way, and that's how people actually try to measure this induced velocity. Okay, so good. So now we have put this and we have turned the wind tunnel on. So there is some air coming from bottom. So there is air coming from bottom, okay, which is making a descent. So this is like a wind tunnel. So other way, I mean, I can put this propeller like this, okay, and it is spinning, okay, and my air may be coming from this side, okay, in a wind tunnel. So either way, I mean, now so I'll clear all this. So okay, fine. I put my rotor in descent. I want to. So what I want to do is I want to measure this power. Okay. So anybody knows how we can measure power? For a helicopter rotor in experiment?
Using load cell.
Sorry?
Using a load cell.
Right, good point. Okay. So what do you measure from load cell?
Thrust, mainly thrust in X and Y and Z directions.
Yeah, but thrust will not help me get the power, right?
We know the RPM of the rotor, and just we have to multiply with the thrust.
No.
In the Z
RPM of
direction.
the rotor into thrust will not give you power. So you're right. You're right. I mean, we'll use load cell, but load cell can measure more things than thrust. Sachin, you want to say something?
Sir, we can do torque into omega.
Right. So we can measure torque also using this load cell. Okay. So you are right, Aman, that I mean we'll use load cell, but load cells actually can measure 3 forces, 3 moments if you want to. Okay. With a good load cell, 6-component load cell. Or I can simply use a torque sensor, which will just measure torque. So 1-dimensional load cell basically. Yeah. Which will single axis, which will be what do you call it? Tachometer, right? Yeah. Which measures torque. So all right. So we measure torque, fine, and multiply with omega. How do I measure omega now? Sanjay, you have any idea? How can you measure omega or RPM of the rotor?
Yes, sir. Sir, with a rotometer.
Rotometer, okay, fine. So that is one way. Any other way you know?
Like a Hall sensor?
The Hall sensor, exactly, absolutely correct, yes. So Hall's effect sensor is a very common, very cheap sensor. You can buy in 40-50 rupees with 2 magnets. You can measure RPM of any device very, very accurately. But of course, you require a small electronic circuit like maybe Arduino board. So you can write a small code in Arduino which can actually count the pulses that the Hall effect sensor will generate every time it passes across a magnetic field. So you put two magnets in the spinning frame, whatever is spinning, and one Hall effect sensor below that spinning frame. Okay, and you can measure this RPM. You get RPM, you get omega, you get torque into omega, you get power. Perfect. Okay. So that becomes your aerodynamic power. So that's what people did actually. Okay. So they put up an experiment like this. They measured this power, and they said, okay, let me write this power as this thrust multiplied with the simple momentum theory formula. Plus there is some power which is profile power. So one is, I mean, if I am only interested in finding out ideal condition things, then I will ignore profile power. Okay. Also, I can measure thrust, right? Same load cell, 6 component if I have, I can measure thrust also, I can measure this RPM also, I can measure, so I mean, I can measure power also. But for profile power, okay, let's say, I mean, I have already formula for profile power for hovering rotor. I assume it to be same, or I approximate it to be same rather. So I'll say, okay, my power is actually, profile power is, remember the formula, sigma CD naught by 8, which is non-dimensional, into omega r whole cube into rho into A. So if I calculate this whole thing, okay, I get the profile power. So fine. So somehow, I mean, I know profile power some approximately. So now what I do, I mean, I reorganize this whole business. So I end up with expression like this: VC plus VI bar by VH equal to measured power minus profile power by your hover power. So you can get some simpler formula like this actually at the end. So now what happens? I mean, I know my VC. Okay. How do I know my VC? Because I know my wind tunnel speed. I have turned the wind tunnel on and I can put a anemometer in that tunnel. So I will know what is the tunnel speed. So I will know VC. I can measure power. I can estimate induced profile power. I know my ideal hover power. Okay, which will be T by 3 by 2. Okay. For the measured thrust, because I can measure this thrust T also. So anyhow, I mean, by this kind of jugglery, I can actually find out this average induced velocity. And that's what people did. And that is how they obtained that graph. So if I look at the induced velocity graph, my graph actually went like this, okay, on one side. And other side, it actually, it starts from what? Here, okay, and it will go like this, okay. So we got this kind of thing where this is VI by VX, and on this side we have VC by VX. So this graph came, but now, I mean, by doing this kind of measurements, I can actually mark out some points on this. Okay, experimentally make some measurements. And that's what people did, and then many people did measurements, and because there will be an uncertainty, you end up getting a band of this induced velocity in this region. And based on this empirical evidence of what they measured, people gave some simplified theory. Okay, and that's what we'll see here. So two different theories were given. One is linear fit. So not theory, it's actually two different empirical models were proposed. I mean, there could be many more. I mean, I can do all kinds of curve fit. So take this down carefully. So all right, so we ignored things up to here. Right. So this up to here we have discussed already. Find whatever is there. So now, I mean, whatever results people got, they did two different fits. One is straight line fit, where they use two straight lines to approximate the average inflow. Remember, this is average inflow, not what you normally get. So one is VI by VH equal to kappa minus 3 by 4 VC over VH. This is valid between minus 8 kappa by 4 kappa plus 1. What is kappa? Same what we defined in the figure of merit definition. So this is induced power factor. Okay, so that is what is the kappa is measured induced power factor, which we normally use 1.15. Okay, often kappa is 1.15. Okay, so that is my kappa. So with this kappa up to this value, we use this formula. Then from -2 Vc by Vh less than -8 kappa by 4 kappa plus 1, up to that point we use this expression. Okay, and Vh is same, Hoover induced velocity. So now with this I can get ratio of Vi by Vh. So there is another formula which is a continuous quartic fit. That is fourth order polynomial is fitted. So here simple formula, one formula is there, Vi by Vh equal to kappa plus K1 Vc by Vh plus K2 Vc by Vh square, K3 Vc by Vh cube, K4 Vc by Vh to the power 4. And K1 is -1.125. Kappa is still same as before, induced power factor. K2, so this is K1. Okay. K2 is -1.372. K3 equals to -1.718. K4 equal to -0.655. And this is valid over the whole range from -2 Vc by Vh to 0. Yes. So that's the whole thing. So that completes the definition of induced velocity, how you calculate this in the region where momentum theory cannot be applied. So this is only an approximation, can be used in extreme scenarios where you have to get something to get some calculation going and there is no other option. So fine. So this is the definition of or expression. So you have noted down this, everybody?
So just a second.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Note it down, then let me know. Okay. I mean, anyhow, this is the last thing we want to cover. Time is more or less up.
Sir, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sir, how can we reduce that vortex ring state and I mean that turbulent wake state? Can we reduce it by changing the shape of blade? Rotor blade?
Nothing can be done actually. I don't think anything can be done, but yes, it could be an area of research where you can explore and see whether, I mean, doing certain design changes in the rotor can help you mitigate vortex ring state. People have talked about that. I mean, they have, but the key thing is that, see, normally vortex ring state is easily avoidable. So why worry so much? Okay. And what is the easiest way to avoid it?
Sorry?
What is the easiest way to avoid vortex ring state?
By changing the, I mean, tail rotor, by using
No.
tail rotor.
Why? Vortex ring state can happen to main rotor also, right? So what is the easiest way to avoid that? See, tail rotor vortex ring state, I mean, if it happens, I mean, momentarily, because of wind or side speed, you can immediately change that. Okay. It will only make you yaw once, and after you have yawed, I mean, you can control it with some ease. Okay. It can be troublesome also, but it is still possible to control if you have enough space. Main rotor vortex ring state can happen when even you are descending very fast vertically. So I simply decide not to descend vertically. If I have to land somewhere, I'll go like this. Okay. I'll always come down at an angle and land, no problem. No chance of vortex ring state. Okay.
But in what about, but in VTOL, sir, here directly
VTOL
landing.
airplanes. So they're also same thing. I mean, I'll actually VTOL airplanes like which are like, so like, I mean, you saw for Osprey, right? Or even for our vehicle, I mean, we have biplane tail seater in our lab.
Yes.
Back transition, okay, go to hover, and then see in the autopilot we have set it that my rate of descent, okay, would never exceed 0.1 times what my hover induced velocity is. So we have kind of hard coded that in the autopilot. And same is there in now if you buy DJI Phantom or any other drone, in those drones also they have hard coded this. So even as a pilot, you cannot actually exceed the vertical rate of descent beyond the safe limit. So yes, there, I mean, there is no option. You have to descend vertically, okay? Especially for VTOL vehicles. But then, I mean, I have to travel only small distance using that. I mean, I will approach like this and do a back transition at low height and then land.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, yes.
So that's what is the solution. So this is done, right? Okay. So I think we are done with this whole business. Yeah. Now, I mean, I'll talk about auto rotation a little bit next class. I'll also explain what is auto rotation, and then we'll do this basic derivation. Yeah. Simple things, and then we'll start with forward flight. Yeah. So I'll wrap up the auto rotation in next class, and then we'll start with forward flight condition. Any other questions? So we have lost recording of some few 5 minutes in the beginning. Okay, so next class onwards, before we begin, make sure you guys check that, I mean, this red cloud icon is there against my name, which means that I am recording. Okay. All right, any other question? No? Fine. All right, so stop now. So I think, yeah, I mean, I after completing the forward flight, then no, I think, I mean, I can give you the first homework assignment. I think it is right time, because in this you have to only solve some, do some calculations, basic calculation for hovering flight. So maybe by tomorrow sometime I'll mail you the homework assignment. Yeah. So you can start working on the first homework assignment. All right, so see you again on Tuesday.